Hi bestie, welcome back to Living with Ease. If you're watching on YouTube, I never have like a list with me, but today I made a list because I'm gonna go through my top 10 icks I've ever received from men. There's like that trend going around on TikTok right now where you name your top icks, and not to toot my own horn, is that the saying? But I think that I have like some of the most insane icks. I don't even know if these are necessarily icks. Maybe they're just like insane red flags, or just like they're all just like very shocking stories. And these are only my top 10. I have so many. I don't know why, but I have like the world's worst luck with men. But at this point, like I don't even think I can say it's like bad luck. I think it's partially like the men that I choose to surround myself with. So I'm trying to be more intentional now. But I was thinking about it, and you know what? There's one man to blame for like my whole track record, and it's this guy I dated in 7th grade. He was like the first boyfriend that I actually talked to like on the phone. Like I feel like this was like not my first real relationship because it was still 7th grade, but like before him, I would just like maybe do like a little AIM chat, but like never talk in person, like never hang out. He was the first person that I'd like kind of hang out with, and we'd call each other every night. Anyway, he was like a skater boy, and he was so mean to me. We would break up all the time. Our song was Spacebound by Eminem, which is just like such a weird song. That song and like Love the Way You Lie, like that album was like our like whole, that like came out when we were dating, but Spacebound was like our song. Anyway, he would like always do just like mean things. Like he'd have me meet him at the skate park, and then when I'd get there, he wouldn't talk to me, and he'd be like with other girls, and then he'd break up with me because at this point I had never made out with anyone. I didn't make out with anyone for the first time until sophomore year of high school. Actually, the first time I ever made out with someone was also the night I lost my virginity. I just like kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Anyway, he was so mean, and then we broke up and I was like heartbroken, but that kind of like set the record and the tone for relationships going forward, because I thought he was so cool, and I thought like, okay, the cool guys are not very nice, so I'd go for like the cool, mean skater boys or guys who did drugs and just did not like me. And I don't know why I did that, but that's been kind of like my thing my whole life. Like I've never dated anyone nice. I don't think I've ever been in a healthy relationship in my life, and if I don't go for someone who's mean, they're just like weird in some way. Like I don't, and not weird in a good way. Like I can say I think there's only like 2 or 3 people that like I've either dated or hooked up with in the past, like I'm now friends with. Like I choose really awful people that I should not surround myself with. So anyway, that's why I have like this very extensive list, and this list could go on and on. Like I could make a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4 of icks, but I tried to pick my top 10. And you know what? I think that I'm finally growing and making progress, because lately when a situation doesn't serve me and I feel disrespected, or like they're not being kind, or like they're being weird, I remove myself. And even the other day, okay, this guy who also was a skater boy, he asked me to go on a date, and he asked me to go go-karting, by the way, which I was like, that is such an awkward first date, but I was like, whatever, I'll go. And then he was like, do you want to go tonight? And I was like, sure. And then he didn't message me back for like 4 hours. And then he was like, at like 10:30 p.m., he was like, do you still want to hang? And I was like, obviously not. And then he like reached out to me again, asking me to go on another date. And I just declined, because now I'm at the point in my life where if it's like even the tiniest amount of disrespect, I'm like, it's not happening. So I am just chilling and being very careful and selective now, because the next person I date, like respectfully, I feel like I'd like to marry, because I'm so tired of breakups and like situationships. So I'm just like chilling until I find that, and I'm very content right now. So without further ado, these icks are in no particular order. They're all pretty bad. I would say number 1 it's pretty bad, but actually no, they're all really bad. So starting off strong with ick number 1. The time me, Celia, and my boyfriend, we were 18 and we went to a Lil Wayne concert, and my boyfriend got kicked out because he thought that I was going to have sex with Lil Wayne, made a huge scene, and then required a helicopter search party to locate him. Okay, let me get into this one. So yeah, basically, actually maybe we were 19. It was sophomore year. Yeah, so we were 19. And we went to Suffolk and Boston. My boyfriend didn't. He went to Northeastern, but I don't know why that detail matters. Anyway, we go to Syracuse, New York to go to this concert, like a Lil Wayne concert. And it was going to be fun because it was at like a college. So it was like party vibes. We knew a few people who went to Syracuse, and yeah, it was just like going to be like a fun night. So we get a hotel. We're all drinking before like getting ready to go. And we get to the concert, and this man was always very, very moody. I could make a whole podcast episode about him. Like, there are so many stories from him. Anyway, we get to the concert, and we're just, like, chilling. Celia and I are chatting and, like, laughing. And, like, I look over, and he's, like, not laughing or smiling. He looks actually very angry, and I'm like, oh, great. Here's another night of this man being moody. And so I'm like, are you good? And then he just, like, explodes, and he's like, of course I'm not good. I know we came to this concert just so you could have sex with Lil Wayne, and like started like making a whole scene. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, obviously that's not why we came. If that's why we came, I wouldn't have brought you. And also I was like 19 at this point, and just like that was not even like on my radar of things I wanted to do at all. So he makes this huge scene. People start turning around looking at us because he's causing a scene. And when people start turning around and looking at him, then he goes, oh yeah, I'm the bad guy. At least your girlfriend didn't come here to have sex with Lil Wayne. And I was like, are you actually kidding me right now? And he just like starts getting more and more mad to the point where security escorts him out of the venue, which was so embarrassing. And like Celia and I obviously weren't kicked out, but we were like in the middle of Syracuse. It was like very cold outside. He was clearly like unstable and going through something. So I was like not gonna let him just like run off on his own. So we like also left to go locate him, and we were gonna like go back in after I found him. But so we like see him kind of running off in the distance, and we like go like run to catch up with him. And every single time, this is an ick in itself, every single time like we run after him, he like turns around and like sees us running after him, and we'll like sprint faster, and then he would like try to like get a lead on us and then like hide behind bushes or trees. Like he was really acting very bizarre. And so we finally catch up to him, and like campus security like sees this whole situation going on, and they're like, is everything okay over here? And I was like, actually, honestly, no. He is like very drunk, although I actually don't even think he was drunk. I think like I wish I could say that he was drunk and that's why he acted this way. I think he was like stone cold sober. But I was like, he's drunk and he's acting like disorderly. Can you please arrest him for the night so that Celia and I can go back to this concert, like have fun, and like I'll pick him up in the morning? And they were like, we don't have the authority to arrest him. Long story short, they refused to arrest him, but they were like, maybe you guys should just all go home. And they're like, we'll get you a taxi. And so they get us a taxi to our hotel and like tell the taxi driver to just like bring us back. And I'm like so pissed and annoyed at this point, and like so is Celia, but I'm also just like stressed because he's like so mad at us. And I'm like, what the hell? And it was just so out of the blue and so obscene. So we're driving in the taxi, heading back to the hotel, and we stop at a red light on like this, I think it's like getting onto the highway. It was like a 4-lane road. That's all I remember. And he like opens the taxi door at this red light, sprints across the street into the woods, and just disappears. And I'm like, I don't really know what the hell to do. And I will give him this. He is a fast runner. So then Celia and I also were like, okay, well, I guess we should get out too. Because like he just ran into the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere, and it's freezing outside. And he's clearly like, I don't know what's going on in his head. So we get out, we like try to like find him and like don't see him anywhere. And so I end up calling the police because like I just didn't really know what else to do. So we called the police. The police show up, and I like tell them the situation. And so they're so concerned that they send out a search party for him. And this search party starts with just like a few police officers with like flashlights. But then they get like the canine unit showing up, and then they even got a helicopter to search for this man. There was a helicopter searching for this man who ran away from a Lil Wayne concert because he thought I was going to have sex with him and threw a fit and hid in the woods. And he did a really good job hiding because no one ever found him. Well, I mean, like, eventually he was found, but, like, they, like, basically for, like, 4 hours searched for him while Celia and I sat in the back of a cop car, and I was, like, at this point, like, sobbing, because it just was, I was like, I don't know where he went, and, like, I don't know what's going on, he's so mad at me, it was, like, this whole thing. And so, finally, the police are like, okay, well, we've used up all our resources, and they're like, and honestly, like, it's very expensive, especially to have, like, a helicopter searching for someone, so I think you guys should just go back to your hotel and, like, hope he turns up. And I'm like, okay. I'm, like, very upset, but we go back to the hotel, and about an hour later, we get a call from the police, and they're like, oh, like, we found him, and he's headed back to the hotel right now. And I was, like, so relieved, but then so pissed, because this man the whole time, he, like, I guess he ran through the woods and found, like, a pizza shop and was just sitting in this pizza shop for hours while there's everyone searching for him. So yeah, this whole time everyone was looking for him, he was just at a pizza shop eating pizza and just chilling, just like he was pissed off and cooling down at a pizza shop. And like, I had sent him so many texts, called him so many times. I called his parents, I called his sister, I called the police, and he comes back and shows up at the hotel, and instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry for acting that way and like freaking everyone out, he just is so mad at me because I called the police. And he didn't get in any legal trouble, by the way. Like, they were just trying to locate him, but he was so angry at me and Celia, and he was the one who didn't speak to us that night. And then in the morning, we all had a 4-hour drive back from Syracuse to Boston, and I think that if we had not had that 4-hour drive, I would have never spoken to him again. But the drive was so awkward that I decided to, like, forgive him just for the sake of the drive and it being awkward. And then he, like, ended up buying me, like, grocery store flowers and, like, apologizing and promised it would never happen again, and so many other things in that relationship. Like, that was just the beginning, and I should have ended things there, but I didn't. But that is ick number 1. I think that's one of the worst icks I've ever gotten in my life, and I don't know how I continued to date him after that. But okay, going into ick number 2. I went on a date with this guy. I'd had a crush on him for a while, and we, like, had started dating a little bit, but there were, like, some weird red flags. First of all, like, we had been, like, going on multiple dates, and, like, he would sometimes sleep over my apartment, but we had never even kissed. Like, he would sleep in my apartment. Like, we were, like, basically, like, platonic friends. It was weird, but we'd go on dates and, like, kind of flirt with each other, but, like, I don't know. Anyway, I, like, had this weird feeling about him. Like, I couldn't tell if I liked him or not, and, like, looking back, I definitely didn't. Like, if you have to question if you like someone, you probably don't like them. But anyway, I don't know if you ever do this, but when I'm trying to figure out if I like someone or not, I'll bring them around my friends because I want my friends to, like, suss the situation out and see, like, okay, is this person normal? Do you like them? Like, have them observe our interactions and be like, yeah, you do or don't like them. Anyway, I decide to introduce him to my friends, and, like, we all hang out in a group setting so I can, number 1, see how he interacts with other people, and number 2, like, just have my friends be like, oh yeah, you do like him or you don't, because I couldn't figure it out, which, yeah, I just definitely didn't like him. And also, side note about this man that is important to the story, he was, like, on a very strict keto diet. He was, like, 6'2" and weighed less than me, and he would, like, always shame me for, like, eating carbs. Like, I remember our first or second date, we went to an Italian, this was our second date, we went to an Italian restaurant, then we drank a bunch, so then on the way home, I was like, oh, do you want to, like, go back to mine and we'll, like, order a pizza? And he was like, well, you already had pasta tonight, like, I don't think you should have any more carbs. He was so weird. This other time, this is, like, an ick, we went to brunch one time, and it was at this place near my apartment, and we sat down, and it was, like, one of those tables that had a booth on one side and then a chair on the other, and I sat in the booth because, I don't know, I'm the girl, and I sat in the booth, and then he was like, can we please switch seats? Like, I have a problem. And I was like, okay, sure. And I thought his problem would be, like, he had, like, a back problem or something. So we switched seats. Now I'm in the chair, and I'm like, what's your problem? And he's like, well, I like to be able to see when the waiter is coming to bring our food. It made me get up, switch seats with him, and then I had to pay for brunch. He made me pay the whole bill, which was also so weird. Anyway, back to this ick though. So he meets us at the bar, and the whole point of him being on keto is important because I don't know if this was caused by ketosis or the fact that he took a large dose of kratom before and he'd never taken kratom before. And also, side note, I almost tried kratom once because you can like buy it. It's like legal. I don't even really know what it is. I'm glad I didn't because I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it kind of like, it's a tea and I think it kind of makes you like hallucinate a little bit. And my like boyfriend at the time had told me it was like Molly, like illegal Molly, and I'm really glad I didn't try it because I did not think I would have liked kratom. Anyway, he had kratom before and he met us at this bar and like we're all hanging out. We go outside, my friends are smoking and we're like just standing outside laughing, and then he turns to me and he's like, can we go back in the bar? Like, I don't want to be out here anymore, which I was like, that is so rude, but okay, sure. And so we go back in the bar and it's just me and him, and I'm like talking to him and his eyes just start to completely glaze over. And then I'm like, hello, like, why aren't you talking to me? Because he wasn't responding to me for like a solid 2 minutes. He just like was not responding to me. And I was like, what is going on with you? Like, is anyone in there? And yeah, this man just completely falls backwards and faints in the bar. And I know this is mean to say that gave me an ick. If he like wasn't okay, like I would like be like, whatever, like that sucks. But it gave me such an ick because this man, I'm just talking to him 1 second, the next minute he faints and like his glasses go flying off his head and like his wallet like falls out of his pocket, and like just looking down at him on the ground after he fainted, like it just gave me such an ick. And then he finally comes to and he's like, whoa, what happened? And I'm like, you fainted. And then he's like, oh, I can't find my glasses. It just gave me such an ick. And to make it worse, like obviously the bar was like, you fainted, like we can't serve you. And like he later was like, oh yeah, sorry, like I had kratom before. I don't know if it was the kratom or the fact that he like went into like a ketosis like situation. I don't really know. I don't know much about keto. All I know is this man was not eating, but he also took kratom. I don't know. Either way, he fainted. It gave me the ick. And then like my friends were trying to be like, oh, like maybe it's that like cigarette like you and I shared because like that made me dizzy too. And then he to this guy was like, bro, like you don't have to try to make me feel better. Like whatever, I know what happened. And like just getting so aggressive and mad at everyone. And then we took an Uber home. I don't know why I still invited him home with us after. And like he sits in the front seat of the Uber just playing this weird house music, just like bobbing his head like angrily, like because he's so angry he fainted and people were like, are you okay? And then when we get back to my apartment, I let this man sleep in my bed. First of all, we still have never kissed at this point. And he slept in my bed and his like dirty head that was like sitting on the bar floor touched my pillow. Ew, it was so gross. And I never hung out with him again after that. Number 3, this is actually the same boyfriend from story number 1. Short little quick story here. I parked my car at his house in Boston because my apartment didn't have free parking, his did. And so I'd park it there, but because of this, he thought that meant that he had more authority to use my car than me, which is an issue in itself, but I was like, okay, whatever. So he'd like drive my car around everywhere and wouldn't let me drive it. I needed my car to go home because I was going to go home to my parents' house for the weekend. And so I was like, hey, I need my car. And he was like, he was taking summer classes. So he was like, you can have your car back after you drop me off at class. And I was like, what the hell? But he like, I did whatever he said because he would really get mad at me. And it was a very toxic relationship. And that is a whole other story in itself that I could tell sometime if you're interested in hearing. But anyway, so I am just like, I agree, whatever. And he picks me up and I was like, well, I can just drive and drop you off and then I'll head just straight from your school to like home. But then he like wouldn't let me drive. He had this thing where he wouldn't let me drive my car. So he had to drive. Anyway, so he's driving the car to class. And if you know Boston, you know there's so many one-way streets. This was the street, just to give you a scene, if you live in Boston. So you know that Starbucks on Boylston, like the first one, and then there's like a one-way street going across this way, like down to Comm Ave, like you can get like all the way on like the highway there. That's the street we're going on, and so it's a one-way street, and there's a UPS truck like parked on the side because it's like unloading stuff, and it has one of those like UPS like metal grates that pulls down from the truck. Do you know what I'm saying? Hopefully you kind of know what I mean. Anyway, it's blocking the road and he's late for class. And so I think any normal person would wait for the UPS guy to come back and then like put the grade up so we could pass. But my boyfriend was so angry that this truck was blocking our way that instead of waiting for it to move, he rammed my car as hard as he possibly could into the UPS truck, which caused about like $4,000 of damage to my car. After he did that, I was like, what the hell? I started crying because I tried to open my door, which by the way, this was on the passenger side, so it was like on my side. I tried to open my door and there was like so much damage that like you couldn't even open the car door. And then he started just like mocking me as I was crying and was like, oh my God, I'm so sad that my car is damaged. And I was like, okay, you can like respectfully like get out and walk to class now. And he did, and he blocked my number for like a week after that because he was so mad that I got upset that he rammed my car into a UPS truck, and I ended up apologizing to him for making him feel bad. So that was another time I should have broken up with him, but I didn't. Moving on to ick number 4. Oh my goodness, this was my first boyfriend, like first real boyfriend ever. And he and I had been broken up for a while. He was absolutely awful to me. He would cheat on me all the time, and like he called me like a cum dumpster once, and then we'd like hook up and then he'd block my number and tell me like what a slut I was for like hooking up. He just was a very unkind boyfriend to me. So, and the whole relationship, like that was my first like severe heartbreak. Like that relationship took me so long to get over. I thought my life was over. I think for like literally like 5 months after, I would just sit on my couch watching Desperate Housewives and sobbing. Like I was like not even a human being. And so anyway, finally get over him, and like he knows I'm over him now. And at this point, like I've like moved on to college, like he stayed home, and I think he like wanted to get back with me because respectfully, I think that I was probably the best girlfriend he'll ever have. Not putting him down, just saying I was very kind to him and like did a lot for him, and we had a good relationship, and he threw that away, and I think he could recognize that. And so he still messages me to this day, by the way. Actually, he'll probably listen to this podcast. So if he's listening, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well. But this was a little outrageous, and I think we can all agree on that. I was not responding to him. So he was like trying to figure out, I guess, like in his mind, a way to excuse his terrible actions for like the past 2 years of our relationship. Like he was just so mean to me, and like there's just no way to really excuse that. So he decided to come up with this. Let me just tell you what happened. So I wake up to a message on Facebook Messenger because like I have his number blocked, and I guess I didn't block him on Facebook at the time. And so he sent me this like long message basically explaining that he had been in a really bad car accident and he had flown through the windshield of his car, and everyone at the scene like said that he shouldn't be alive, and that like his car had folded in half. He'd been in the hospital for like a really long time, and he's like still in the hospital, but he's like finally starting to recover. And during this time in the hospital, he stopped doing drugs, which first of all, if you got in that severe of a car accident, I feel like they'd probably actually have you on like pain meds. So like that in itself doesn't really line up. But he said he stopped doing drugs, and this near-death experience made him realize like how awful he was to me in the relationship. But now because of this, he's like a changed man. And then he like went on to like apologize for his actions. It'd be one thing if he just like apologized, but he had to like say this whole thing about the truck accident. And the reason this is an ick is because then the next day, Celia and I are driving. We see this man the next day driving in said car that he claims he flew through the windshield of, and he's now like recovering from the hospital. Not in the hospital, car is totally fine. Like me and him literally lock eyes. Like everyone knows that he's now lied about this car accident. And yeah, I guess he just made up this severe car accident situation because he wanted to make me think that he had changed, which like, you know, I respect the effort, and I could honestly see myself doing that in like an earlier time of my life as well. But that was insane, and that icked me out. That icked me out so bad. Going on to number 5, this like honestly, this isn't like a severe ick, but it is an ick. I was with this man who was on the shorter side, and he just always like insisted constantly on being like the little spoon, and he would always ask me to hold him and like make it like almost act like a baby. And I mean, that just, it grossed me out. It's like one thing, like, you know, like I'll be the big spoon every now and then if I must, but like every single time, and like making it such a thing, like being like, oh, like please hold me, like it's not what I look for in a man. So that just like gave me a pretty big ick. That's like yeah, okay. Number 6. So I was dating this guy from Morocco. And by dating, I mean we were hooking up. And actually, I'll never forget, like, literally 2 months after hooking up, I found out, like, we were all, like, sitting in a room, like, me, Celia, him, his roommate, and he called me Kaylee. And it became clear to me that even after 2 months of, like, hooking up, like, every week, he still didn't know how to pronounce my name. And everyone in the room just kind of, like, went silent, and it was very uncomfortable. Anyway, I had gotten chlamydia from this other guy in New York who claimed that he, like, we were in love and, like, whatever. And turns out he was, like, a promoter, which I did not know he was a promoter. I would not have gone home with him had I known that. But he was, like, a promoter and had a girlfriend. She'd been this girlfriend with me and probably many other girls, and gave me chlamydia. So then I had to, like, now tell this guy in Boston that I had chlamydia, and, like, I had to tell everyone else, which, side note, this is an ick I gave myself. There was this other guy I was talking to who ghosted me. And I had convinced myself the reason that he ghosted me was because he had given me chlamydia, and he was so in love with me that he was just too ashamed to, like, let me know that he gave me chlamydia because he didn't think I'd ever want to talk to him again. So I had deleted his number at this point. So I had my friend Alex, like, text his friend, ask for his number so that I could, because it was an emergency, so I could text him. His friend never responded. So then I resort to Snapchat, and I Snapchat him, and I'm like, thanks for the chlamydia. And yeah, it turns out he didn't give it to me. That was after him. And I, like, check his Snapchat story, and he's, like, in Miami with, like, a bunch of his friends on a boat. And I'm just like, yeah, he never reached out to me again. Though he did go back and like a bunch of my Instagram posts. So I consider that still, like, I have this theory they always come back. And I think that's coming back enough in itself. But anyway, so I was hooking up with this other guy at the same time that I got chlamydia from the guy in New York. So I, as a good citizen does, I texted him, was like, hey, I'd just like to let you know I have chlamydia, like, sorry, but you should probably go get tested yourself. And he responds back to me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, but I'm in Morocco right now, so I can't take you to the hospital, or I would. And I was like, I mean, it's just chlamydia, like, I don't need to go to the hospital, you just, like, take 2 pills, like, I don't need anyone taking me to the hospital. I'm all good. I'm just, like, letting you know. But I didn't say that. I was just like, okay. And then, like, we hang out a week later, and I'm like, oh, like, did you get tested? Like, are you good? And then he's like, what do you mean? Like, did I get tested? And then I was like, what do you mean? Do I mean, did you get tested? Like, I have chlamydia. You might too. And then he was like, oh my God, like, this whole time I thought you were saying you were pregnant. And I lied and said that I was in Morocco because I didn't want to deal with that. And, like, is that an ick or just, like, really just not kind? I mean, that is just, wow. And I was like, okay. And I actually continued to hook up with him for, like, a month after he said that. And he did end up getting tested for chlamydia, and it was negative. But that was just, I was like, okay. That was a lot. Number 7. Oh my God. This is actually the same one as the same boyfriend from the Lil Wayne concert and the UPS truck incident. After we broke up, he switched gyms to attend my gym, and I had, like, long, hard, like, rejected him by this point. And he was, like, kind of like, he would leave notes on my doorstep and, like, then, like, knock on the door and run away and watch from behind a bush, and, like, he switched gyms to go to my gym. Like, he was getting a little weird. And anyway, I would be, like, working out at the gym all the time, and he, like, knew what time I would go to the gym. So he'd go to the gym at that time too, and he would do this thing where either A, he would just sit on, like, the gym, like, you know how, like, some of, like, weight machines, like, have seats on them? Like, I guess, like, probably a lot do, right? He would sit on, like, the seats of the weight machine and just watch me and stare at me as I worked out, which was like creepy. But this is what gives me an ick. He would do this other thing where sometimes he would like quickly walk up to me and like I wouldn't see him coming, and then I'd feel someone tap me on the shoulder. He'd tap me on the shoulder, then he would flip me off, and then he would like super awkwardly like laugh and like walk away and then like go like hide behind some gym equipment. That just like, that gives me such, like, that is just weird behavior. And that, I mean, I was already very icked out by this man at this point, but that definitely gives me an ick. Number 8, this guy I was talking to my freshman year of college, who I also was like heartbroken over. And I actually think in this situation, like, I was in the wrong. He like tried to end things with me, and I basically was like, you're not gonna end things with me. And like, yeah. Anyway, he would like get very, very drunk, and like whenever I would sleep over at his house, like after like a night where we would go out and like party, which was a lot of nights because this is when I went to that like insane party school, and like we were always drinking a ton and always doing a bunch of drugs. He would wet the bed like all the time with me in it, and I would be like sound asleep and then wake up to like this feeling of warm liquid around me, and he would wet the bed, and then like I don't really know what we would do after that. I think he just like put towels down and we'd continue to sleep there with like a different, but ew, it's just so gross. Yeah, like, and then if you think about it too, like obviously this is like a college student living in like a gross house, and like then he's got this mattress. He should have had a mattress protector, but he didn't. So thinking back, like I would sleep on this mattress all the time that had like so much pee, human pee just soaked into it, and I was like heartbroken over this man who would wet his bed all the time. Yeah, that like honestly didn't give me an ick at the time, but it definitely should have, and I have an ick about it now. Number 9, after I went through a really severe breakup, my best friend, Celia, like set me up with her boyfriend's brother, and this is another situation. I don't know why I get myself in these situations. I'm not confrontational. I'm better about it now, but we like didn't even ever kiss, but we would go on like dates, and the first time we ever hung out, like we went to a club together, and then we went back to my apartment, and he slept over, and he slept in the bed with his jeans and his shoes on, which is so disgusting, especially like after getting back from a club in New York. And if that doesn't get bad enough, like I wanted this man to leave, and yeah, this is partially on me, okay? But also I think people can take a hint. I wanted him to leave so bad, and he just like would not leave my apartment. And so Friday turns into Saturday, Saturday turns into Sunday, and by Sunday I'm like, this man still hasn't left, like, oh my God. And it was, I don't know how I let that happen, and I don't even know what we did as those days went on. Like this whole thing is really bizarre to me, but he wouldn't leave my apartment. But then come Sunday night, I was like, okay, I can do this for one more night because tomorrow's Monday, and like he's obviously not gonna stay here like while I'm in class. And so this is where I like went even more wrong. So I'm leaving for class in the morning, and I'm like, all right, well, see you later, whatever, bye, like good hanging out this weekend, like trying to be like, okay, like you can go. I don't know why I did this, but I was like, oh, because he like wanted to go like sell beats around the neighborhood that he had made. And so he was like, I was like, oh, like you can, if you need to like come back to grab your stuff, like you can use this key. But I thought that was kind of insinuating like, okay, like you've got to go today. So, and I also was like, by the way, please don't open the window, because Cleo and Luna, they were tiny, like 4-pound kittens at this time, and I lived on the 6th floor, and it opened this way with no screen, so they could easily just walk right out of the window because it was like next to this ledge they'd always sleep on. I get home from class at like 4 p.m., and I'm like positive that he's not going to be there anymore, but I'm a little worried. But I walk into my apartment, and I like do a quick glance because it's a studio, and I don't see him anywhere, so I breathe like a huge sigh of relief, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God this man is gone. He's not in my apartment. And then I see him walk out of the bathroom, and he's still there. I look around at my apartment. It's trashed. There's weed everywhere. Like there's dishes everywhere. There's like my microwave's like destroyed because he like microwaved like something that exploded in the microwave, and my window is open, which is just so disturbing. I think he was like smoking weed in my apartment, opened the window, and just like did not care about Cleo and Luna. I thank God nothing happened. I'm so mad at this point. So I'm trying to like I still don't know how to tell him to leave. So I am just like, yeah, well, you know, I've got to study. Like I have like a ton of reading to do. And he was like, oh yeah, like know how that is, hate that. And I was like, do you know how that is? But okay. And so he's like playing this podcast super loud. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of hard to focus like in a loud environment. And he's like, yeah, that's tough. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Also, he's sitting at the one, because it was a studio apartment, so all I had was a bed and a table, like a small, like little bistro table. And that's where I would like usually study. And he took the table and I had to sit in bed. And finally, like, and he won't turn this stupid podcast he's listening to down. And so I end up being like, well, it's super loud in here and I can't focus. And he doesn't say anything. So I'm like, I guess I'll go study in the lounge. And he's like, all right, see you, have fun. So I go downstairs, like my building had like a little study lounge, and I'm like studying downstairs in the lounge, and I'm so mad at this point. I call Alex and I call Celia, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, he won't leave my apartment, and like I'm going through a breakup, and it's like I think this was like my first month of law school. I was just like very upset. And so I finally go back upstairs and get the courage to tell him like he needs to leave, because I don't know why he's still in my apartment. It's been 3 days. And also, he only has one pair of clothes and presumably one pair of underwear. So he's been wearing the same clothes for 3 days now. Same underwear for 3 days. So when I get back into my apartment, this man is like passed out on my bed, podcast blaring, and I try to wake him up and he won't wake up. And keep in mind, clearly I'm not confrontational. And so I'm like trying to shake him awake so that he'll like leave my apartment. And he will not wake up. And then I start being like, oh my God, like I can't wake this man up. So I call my friends again and I'm like, he won't wake up. What do I do? And they're like, you have to wake him up. So I finally, at this point, I start sobbing because I'm just like, what the hell is going on? Also, this was like fresh out of a breakup. So I was like, just like really not okay. And so I finally wake him up and he wakes up to me sobbing. And I'm like, you need to leave my apartment like right now. And he's like, whoa, okay, sorry. And he gets up and leaves. But that was definitely such an ick. Oh my God. Talk about like overstaying your welcome. I mean, I should have told him to leave, but like also get the hint, bro. Like if I was staying at a guy's house, like I just wouldn't ever stay. Like when I stay at a guy's house, like I leave in the morning unless like we're dating or we have like plans to hang out. I didn't even know this man. Okay. And number 10. I was dating this guy from England, and if you remember like 2 years ago, like soccer, football, whatever you may call it. I know it's football in every single country except for the US. Like the whole tournament where Italy beat England. He took that like really, really, really harshly, and I get it. Like, be a fan, like whatever. I mean, I don't really get it. Sorry if that's controversial. I just like have never been that into sports, but I understand like people do get involved in sports and really care about sports, and that is great for them, and I love that for them. That being said, it's been weeks since this has happened, and we go to an Italian restaurant for dinner on a date, and he starts crying at dinner because he told me that like being at an Italian restaurant was triggering for him because it reminded him that Italy beat England. And he actually then, as like he's crying, the waiter comes up and like asks for our order, and then like he's visibly crying. So then he like turns to the waiter and he's like, sorry man, like I'm just like, this is really triggering for me because like you guys beat England. And that was just, first of all, mortifying for me sitting there, because I was like, I don't want to say it's not that serious for any sports fans out there, but I don't think it's that serious. I mean, I get it's very serious for people, sure. And maybe I just don't understand the situation. Maybe you guys are going to be like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Like, whatever. I just don't get sports. Either way, I don't think you should be crying at an Italian restaurant because it's an Italian restaurant. That was just, wow. So Anyway, those are my top 10 icks, I would say. I think I could make a list of about 400 icks if you'd like to hear another round sometime. But long story short, like, just don't be like me. I think a lot of these icks have a common theme of me just like putting up with men who I should not be surrounding myself with. But like I told you, I am, I'm moving forward and I'm maturing, and I think now I'm just like so picky. I just like honestly don't speak to anyone. So I think the last guy that I gave a chance to, this was like a month ago, I went over to his house and he turned on a strobe light, like unironically, while we were hooking up, like very seriously, like trying to set the vibe. And he was like 30. So I just think that's like a little weird at that age to even have a strobe light in your room. But every single day we're moving forward. So yeah, those are my top 10 icks. I hope you enjoyed, and I love you, and I will see you next week.